Hi, today we're going to work with a photograph in Corel Photo Paint, which is Corel's version of Photoshop. And it goes hand in hand with Corel Draw, as I've mentioned on several other videos, which is what I like about Corel. We have a picture of some spaghetti here with, I guess that's a bolognese sauce. And as you can see, it has some basil on top of it. So I thought it would be fun to do a video and see how we might, what if we want to get rid of the basil and make it look realistic. Let's see how we might go about that. I'll select my photo here. This is a JPEG, so it is not transparent, but that's not going to matter for what we're doing here. So I'm going to just leave it as what it is. It's a low resolution bitmap. I'll click Edit Bitmap on my toolbar up here, and that takes me to Corel Photo Paint. And once again, that's what I like about Corel. I can go back and forth between Draw, my original, and Photo Paint. Now I can do a lot of photo editing right in Draw, but I can't do what I want to do here. So I do have to use Photo Paint for this. So, once again, we want to get rid of this basil, and we don't want to erase it. We want to replace it with what's behind it, so it looks like it's just gone. For that, I'm going to use my clone tool, which is right up here. And the clone tool is a brush. So there are settings, brush size right here, that round thing. I've got it set at 45. Transparency, that's a very important setting. For most brushes, you want to use a fairly high transparency. For an airbrush, I use like a 95, but for a clone tool, I'll go down to about 70. And what the transparency does is regulates how quickly you're able to accomplish what you're doing. The slower you work, the more realistic you'll see that it tends to be. Now, I want to look at my plate here. You can see that it kind of changes tone there from the white to the sort of gray. I want to keep that in mind with my clone tool. What a clone tool does is if I click it, it'll provide an anchor here. And that anchor is going to sample what it's covering, and it's going to transfer that sample to my brush. And you can see they move together when I hold down my, I won't do it here, but you'll see in a moment. I'll hold down my left mouse button and begin drawing, and the two will move together, and it looks like it's erasing the basil, but it's not. It's replacing it with the color of the plate. Right there where the target is where it's sampling, and it's replacing the basil with the plate. Now you can see that light and dark area, I'm going over both of it at once. So as the target moves, it samples a different area. So for this part, I want to go down here, sample this darker part of the plate, and keep working that. You can see I'm working quite slowly. And the reason for that is so you don't get a big pattern. That's where your transparency comes in. You do want to use a fairly high transparency. As I said, I'm using 70, which is about right for this project. Now, I can't go down here because you don't want the plate to cover up your meat sauce. What you want to do, let's go back to what we had. What we want to do is just put the plate where the plate would be, and then we're going to use meat sauce to cover up the rest of that basil, so it looks like a nice pile of spaghetti with the bolognese sauce. Now I'm going a little quicker than normal just because it's a video. I don't want you to get bored. So we could do a better job if we took our time, but that's about right there. Now you can see right here on the plate, see that little bit of a hard edge I ended up with? Let's see if I can get rid of that using my smudge tool, which is down here, little Q-tip, And smudge tool is also a brush. I'm going to use a 90 transparency, so it just gives it a real subtle smudge. And it's so subtle that you might not even notice it's doing anything, but gradually that smooths out that area back there so you don't see a hard edge. Alright, double click and go back to my clone tool. And now I want to sample some of this bolognese sauce. Now this is a little bit difficult, more difficult than the plate, because you can see there's sort of a pattern. And you want to make sure you don't have a repeating pattern. You can see what I just did there. If somebody looks at this carefully, they'll see that repetitive pattern. So you do want to sample different areas of your meat sauce to give it sort of a random look. So I'm going to go down here, get some of that. Go down here, get some of that, and just keep sampling and drawing until you get it to look the way you want. Okay, I'm drawing a little bit more here to cover up the last of that green. And if it's just for a video, I won't work too hard on it because you can sort of see what I'm doing. And keep in mind what your end user is going to be doing. If it's for a restaurant menu or high-end advertisement, you probably want to make it look as good as you can. If it's for a Facebook post or a website or something that, if you can imagine, the average person will look at a photograph for just a second or so, and they'll probably be fine with that. So you can work on this edge here a little bit. It looks a little out of focus compared to the rest of it, but I'm going to leave it at that for a moment for the time being. And I'm going to do one more thing. You can see the color of this bolognese sauce is a little brown, which is probably what it really looks like, but to make it look a little bit more appetizing, I'm going to try and give it a little bit more red tomato sauce kind of color. So I want to change the color of the sauce, but I want the noodles and the plate to keep their same color. So I'm going to use a mask tool, which is right up here. There are several different kinds of masks. For this, I'll use my lasso mask, which allows me to, you can see, just roughly draw around my sauce and leave the noodles and the plate. And I'm doing a sort of a rough job here. It doesn't have to be perfect for this, but as good as we can without taking too much time. So now I have my sauce surrounded. And you can see, I sort of did a sloppy job down here, but we're going to leave it at that. The plate and the noodles are masked off, more or less, and I just have my sauce. So whatever effects I apply are only going to apply to the area that's not masked. So we'll go up to Adjust, and you can see we've got a bunch of things we can do: tone curve, balance, hue, saturation, lightness. These are all things you're going to use from time to time. For now, I'm going to use selective color, and what that will do is allow me to work on either the red, the yellow. You can see down here I have choices. This is a CMYK, blue, pink, yellow, and black. And as I said, I want it to look redder, so I've got my red selected here. And see what happens when I move my magenta up just a little bit. You can see that gives it a little bit more red. Let's go back to what we did. And that's how it was. And that's the new one. Okay, so it gives it a little bit more, what I think looks a little bit more tomato sauce, kind of appetizing look. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is remove my mask. And that brings it back to the actual image. When I click out of here, it's going to ask if I want to save the changes. And of course I do. So now we're back to Corel Draw. And I'm going to copy this and paste it so we can see what we did. So copy and paste. Actually, before I paste it, I'll go back to how it was. Now I'll paste it. And now I have my old one and my new one, my original and my modified. So you can see what I've done is got rid of the basil. I didn't erase it once again. I replaced it with the background or with the plate and the meat sauce. And I also gave it a little bit more of a red color. Now, the one part I'm not happy with is this edge up here. It is a little blurry and it is a little fuzzy. And so what I would do if I was so inclined was take some samples from down here and see if I could give that a little bit more of a hard edge. Maybe I'll do that on another video, but I would definitely like to work on this a little bit more. But the purpose of this video was to show you the clone tool and the adjust color and the mask tool. Also remember we used the smudge up here to get that a little bit smoother. So anyway, those are some ideas for you to enhance your photographs using Corel Photo Paint. If you like this video, smash that like button. I'd just like to say that. And please subscribe to my channel. And I hope your next project goes well.